Hello and welcome to part 2 of this two-part episode of The Inspired Attorney, hosted by me, Sharon V. Today we are continuing our conversation with Alex Vanicek, who's a solo practitioner, and he shares with us how he manages client expectations. We touch on the importance of mentorships and also what Alex wishes for the future of the practice of law. How do you manage stress for yourself and maintain a work-life balance?
That is a great question, and I think that it's of utmost importance. I really do. I know it sounds like one of these like millennial things where you're talking about your work-life balance, but I think you have to avoid burnout. I do. I think that it's a job that it can be very, very stressful, and I think that one thing that I do notice, one of the guys I work with has a tendency to, in the interest of getting the client, he might really underbid his own services, or take a client on who right off the bat, there's some red flags about the case or about the client. And then sure, it's great when the client's writing you a check that day, but 3 months later when things are going haywire and the client's an absolute nightmare to deal with, you may really regret having done that. And then also you may be going nuts because of this one case. Well, meanwhile, there's a really good case that you just took on that could really use your attention and that could really, use your focus. That's a good paying client and a good case that's really worth, that deserves a lot of attention and time. And so I think part of it is just deciding what you take on and what you don't. And it's something that I fully understand. Not everybody has the luxury to do it right off the bat. You have to pay your bills and things like that. But I've gotten to a point where I have gotten much, much more comfortable letting a case go and not taking it. And because I know that in 2 months, 3 months, it's going to be a pain. It's not going to have been worth it. I'm going to hate that I took the client on. I'm going to dread every time I see their name pop up in my email inbox. I'm going to be, filled with, oh, what does he want now? Oh, geez. And what I've done is just started being more selective about what I take. And I know a lot of people get into the solo or want to get into a solo practice because they say, I want to set my own hours. I want to be my own boss. And that's fantastic. And it is true. It's great. But if the idea is that you're going to work less, then it's probably not a good idea to do, because at the very beginning it was, okay, I'm not making as much money, but boy, I got a lot of I got a lot of freedom to, if I want to go to the gym in the middle of the day, I can just go. If I want to do this, I can just go. If I want to, take some time off or just take the day off, I guess I can just go. And now I find myself more and more and more having basically a full slate of stuff to do, Monday through Friday for the most part, is, that it's gotten pretty steady. But at the same time, what is nice about law, a lot of times, especially litigation, you do have deadlines, but a lot of times you can, if you work with the opposing side or you find a way to make your own schedule where you can be productive, then you really can dictate, what you do and how you do it and when you do it. So I'll say I think I have a fantastic work-life balance. I love it. I think it's great, but I think that it came only after a couple of years of stress, whether that was stress about the uncertainty of the money or whether that was the stress of being a young attorney who doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but is trying to, figure it out. And then I think that what I've been able to do now, I look back on the previous, maybe let's say 4, 5, 6 years ago, when I would have been just, just waking up terrified about all the stuff I have to do, because to me it was super important, because I took law school very seriously. I took this very seriously. So for me, it was, very, very serious. And now I've gotten things more under control where, obviously you still have stresses. You still have clients that can be annoying. You have opposing counsel that can be unreasonable, maybe, judges with bad rulings and things like that are going to make you stressed out. But to me, I think that what it was, or what it has been, is figuring out the business, figuring out ways that you can eliminate a stressful relationship with a client right off the bat, which I think is setting the parameters, setting the expectations of how you work, setting the expectations of how it's going to go, of what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. I think that what I've seen, and not with anybody in particular, but I've seen attorneys that will sign up the client and promise a bunch of stuff and not put any limitations on it because, you know, they just want to get the client in. And then, of course, all the stuff that they promised or that they said could be done. Well, as it turns out, some of it can't, and it's, and then you got a disappointed client. So I like to right off the bat set parameters, let them know what I think, what I can do, what I'm not going to do. For instance, I'm not going to give anybody any tax advice. I don't know anything about taxes. I put together what my CPA asks for and I file my taxes. I don't know anything about the law regarding taxes, so I don't answer anybody's tax questions. Somebody might hire me for, let's say, writing a demand letter. Like, I don't want to sue this person right away, but I think that a lawyer from a letter will really get them to take it seriously. I go, that's fine, as long as you understand that if this person wants to, you're going to pay me a flat fee up front. And if this person wants to use our demand letter as toilet paper, then they can. And they don't have to respond. They don't have to do anything. But if you think that, getting me involved to, kind of get their attention, if you think that's going to help, I'm happy to do it. And then maybe they say, oh, okay, well, I was kind of hoping for something that they had to actually respond to. And then I'd say, well, that's a lawsuit and here's how I can do it. And then, and just sort of setting expectations accordingly. Like, look, this is what I could do. It may not solve your problem, but it might. And then letting them make the decision, because if I've noticed one thing with my practice in the last, I'd say 2 years, especially, I have almost no really upset clients or really agitated clients who are mad at me. Maybe they're, of course, there could be some who are livid with the other side, and that's why they're suing them, or that's, the other side's suing my clients. Of course, they're not happy. It's not, nobody's ever really thrilled in litigation, but I don't have any clients anymore where, they're calling me off the hook. What are you doing? What are you doing for me? What are you, why is this going on? Why is that going on? What we need an update. We haven't gotten an update, because I've sort of figured out how to set their expectations right off the bat. And I'd rather have somebody come in to my office, or a potential client, who walks out and says, no, I don't think it's for me. Or, oh, thanks. Yeah, but that doesn't sound like, a good use of our money. I'd rather have them do that than sign up with me and pay me money based on some expectation that I'm never going to be able to live up to. So I think that that's a big part of, for the mental well-being, is if you level, and people appreciate that. People appreciate when you're honest with them and you say, look, I don't think you have a very good case. I could file it. We can do it. It's going to cost you some money, but it's not really probably going to go anywhere. And if they say, yeah, okay, thanks, I understand, but let's do it, then they're not going to be too upset when it doesn't go well. And you said, yeah, well, like we thought, it didn't go well.
Yeah. So as things have picked up for you, do you do anything to schedule in free time for yourself?
I do. Yeah, I do by keeping a schedule, even though I don't always have, let's say, like a calendar full of set activities. They're set, things that I'm doing all week, but I will still schedule things, let's say, with clients as if I do. I'll so that way, oh, okay, let's talk. How about, can we talk at Monday at 3:30? Okay, Monday at 3:30, great. Maybe I am free that morning, but I'd rather set a time so that way in the morning, whether it's, running a couple errands that are unrelated to work, or whether it's just going through emails, or maybe there's a motion I got to file, and, giving myself free time that I can either work or not. And then, still scheduling with clients as if, oh, I've got this day where this is agenda full of like a dozen things, which I don't always, but I try to keep things orderly in that sense. For example, keeping appointments with clients, or, setting times for things like that. I think one thing, especially for me, I now have an office line, but for a lot of the time it was just everything's from my cell phone. My clients really enjoy WhatsApp. I'm sure this is a thing that a lot of attorneys nowadays contend with is, clients can reach out to you. They can get in touch with you 24/7. And one thing I try to do right off the bat is establish that, hey, you can send me a WhatsApp, but I'm only going to respond Monday through Friday during regular business hours, and so most clients appreciate that. They respect that. There's not much of an issue with that. Sometimes, over the weekend, they may just want to say, hey, just wanted to say this one thing before I forget. Just wanted to kind of let you know, have a good weekend. I don't necessarily mind, if they want to, just drop me a message or whatever. But I think that part of our interconnected world now is great, but it can also be awful if you try to keep tabs with everything 24 hours a day, because you can drive yourself crazy. So I think part of that is, to your point about making time for yourself, is having regular hours where the client understands that, listen, yes, this is my cell phone. Yeah, you can send me a message anytime you want, but during the day, during the weekday, fine. We can be in touch. It's a great way to do it. That's great. And if not, you can send me a message Saturday morning. I'm not going to get back to you till Monday, but I think that's part of it. And then I think, keeping a schedule. I also think not being afraid to not pick up the phone. If somebody calls you and you don't have a set time to talk, look, I'm not overly rigid. I don't have, it's not like by appointment only. The client can call me, as soon as we hang up, a client can call me and I'll answer, but sometimes if I'm busy or there's, somebody else's thing that I'm working on, you can't always answer the phone. And I think, and maybe I send them a quick message. Hey, I'll get back to you this afternoon. That'll put them at ease. You don't want to blow your clients off, of course, but especially if there's not any kind of grave emergency, maybe you don't always have to answer right away. Maybe you can let it sit for a couple hours or get back to them later in the day or the next day. Everything's probably gonna be okay. There are usually not too many urgent law emergencies, thank God. So that's good.
Speaking of emergencies, how are you handling the current situation with the coronavirus with your firm and also with your clients?
Yeah. So one thing is that I feel very thankful that first of all, having this solo practice helps. I have spent, for the last couple of years, I've gone to my native Colorado for the summer, because the weather in Florida is not so great in the summer. The weather in Colorado is great. So I usually visit my family and I work remotely from Colorado. So luckily I've had a little bit of practice working remotely. And so for me, it's not so bad. One thing that has helped just for my practice is the fact that my office is about 5 to 10 minute walk that way. So we've been in quarantine now for about 7 weeks. I don't even know. The days are all kind of running together, but it's been 40 some odd days. And I've been to the office. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've been to the office, and usually it's for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just to grab some mail, check in, maybe it's to grab something or grab a client's file or grab, copies of something. And so what's nice is that I have been able to sort of work mostly normally. Feels a little bit less productive, but that's more of a function, honestly, of my clients. What I've noticed is that and this is in my line of work, is that for my clients, sometimes their legal issue here, because they live usually in Brazil, sometimes their legal issue here can take sort of a back seat in their heads, I think. And so I noticed that some of my cases, the client has gone, and maybe I've reached out to them or we've chatted a little bit, but a lot of times at this time when there's so many other worries, and a lot of my clients run businesses in Brazil. And so, I've had multiple clients tell me that they're worried about, boy, I've got 500 employees and I don't know what I'm going to do with them, and how I'm going to, take care of them, or how we're going to, figure this out. And so I think for them, they're thinking, yeah, that lawsuit that's going on in Miami, I'll worry about that later. So I think in some ways, it has slowed things down in the sense that some of my clients aren't so worried about their issue here. Some are still plenty worried about their issues here because they involve the impact that we're having with our economy too. So one thing I notice is, my clients are people that frequently will go back and forth from Brazil to the US and, are often traveling. That's no more. Right now they're all either here or they're in Brazil. And so for me, it's been okay in the sense that I've been able to do telephonic hearings with court. I've been able to I know they're doing Zoom hearings now. I've been able to do a lot of what I do remotely, which is great. It's one of the great things about this profession, or it can be depending on what part of the law you practice. So that's really nice. And then having an office close by, I was able to go grab my printer and scanner. And so I kind of just work here from home and try to treat it like an office. But I am going to start going back in a little bit here. I think I'm going to start kind of experimenting with going back a couple days a week and just start gradually going to the office a little more regularly, just because of the setup that we have, where it's an enclosed room. It's just three of us. We're more than 6 feet apart anyway. So it is something that, just given our work environment, I think that we may start doing. So it has affected us. It's affected everyone. But I think that we're fortunate in the sense that it doesn't totally throw everything off. It's not something that where work grinds to a halt. In fact, I've been reasonably busy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Alex, tell me, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Tell me, why did you become a lawyer?
It's a great question. I became a lawyer because, first of all, I thought I'd be good at it. And then part of it is that I did not know what to do with myself while I was in college. I had no idea what I was going to do for work. I was very curious about all kinds of things. I was an international affairs major. I was very interested in all kinds of things, but I had absolutely no idea what kind of profession I would want to get into. I mean, when people would ask, I couldn't even begin to come up with a response. I had no idea. And I feel very fortunate because I think I picked the right thing, even though at the time I made the choice, I don't think I had a really good reason to. And that's crazy, but I did it because I thought I would be good at it. And my parents used to, not as a compliment, when I was a kid, my parents used to say that I was going to be a lawyer. And they did not mean that in a good way. And so I started, and I think that the first year of law school is no fun, but one thing that happened after the first year of law school is I recognized that this is the right career path, and this was a good idea, and I'm really glad I did it. And then, I think that in every lawyer's career, there's probably times where you start doubting the profession, whether it's a good idea. I don't think I've ever met a lawyer who hasn't considered doing something completely different at some point or another. But I think that, there were times where it wasn't so fun and where I thought it was maybe the wrong choice. But especially the last 2 or 3 years, especially of being a solo and doing what I do, I really have come to appreciate it, and I really, really like it as a profession, actually. And I think when you're younger, you have this idea of what it's supposed to be like and what being a lawyer is going to be like. And then maybe, once you see it in practice, you realize it's not, always so exciting. But I think that I get to talk to people who are fascinating. I get to hear stories that you would think are so far fetched you could never think that they're real, but they are. And so I a lot of it, and sure, there are days where it's boring. There's days where you're sifting through a bunch of documents and over some real estate deal, and you're surfing through a bunch of email threads that are supremely boring, but I find it to be rewarding, and I think it's a really great profession. And I'm really glad that I went with it, and I knew that it was something I could be good at if I learned how to do it right. And I feel like I'm finally sort of cresting that hill of knowing how to do it well, and finding the enjoyment in it too, even though it's work. It's not always going to be super enjoyable.
So in terms of finding the enjoyment in it, what's one of your favorite things about being an attorney?
One of my favorite things about being an attorney is learning about people, learning about a client, because a lot of times you'll see them in a situation that is very uncomfortable to them, and that is maybe very foreign to them. And especially with my clientele, it could be somebody who has achieved a lot in their life and has overcome a lot of things. And then you might get thrown into a situation with them where suddenly they have no idea what to do and they're completely lost. And even though maybe this person's older than me, I know exactly what's going on and I can actually help them. And so for me, I think meeting people, and not so much meeting people as getting to really know them. And that may not always be in a positive way, but like, to me, I think it's a fascinating look at people. And I think it helps your relationship with your clients if you can figure out what makes them tick, what kind of thing they're into. Everybody's different. You need to figure out what kind of, what approach is going to work with which client, which approach is not. And so I find that getting to talk to these people and these clients, and I have clients from all walks of life, and I find it really interesting seeing the problems that happen to people, and then also the problems people create. And because people create plenty of problems for themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how do you see, or what wishes do you have for the future of the practice of law?
I think that my wishes, I think that eventually technology, and I think it may accidentally be happening just because of this coronavirus crisis, is I think that technology has made practicing law much easier. I started practicing law at a time where everything was e-filed. So frankly, the fact that I I spend a few hours writing a motion, then e-file it, and I can do the whole thing from home or, just behind the desk and bill for it, is great. I find that it's, makes things quite easy. And the two guys I work with, they actually were practicing since before there was e-filing. And they told me about the nightmare that was post-dating things and making sure that, you got the motion in the mail, and then, or figuring out the time frame because maybe it took 3 days to mail. And so it sounds like technology's made law easier. My wish is that it continues to do so. I think there's a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to the courts that could probably be ironed out. I think that the process of filing something, the process of getting it in court, I think is so alien to the normal person, the non-lawyer, that I feel like it could be made to be more streamlined. I think it could be made more user-friendly. I think it doesn't need to be so difficult and opaque for the average person. I think to do that. We talk a lot about access to justice. You hear that all the time, and it seems to me like that technology could play a big role in streamlining how the public interacts with the court system. And so I know that already for lawyers that's taking place with video depositions, with Zoom hearings, with telephonic court appearances, with things like that. I feel like the lawyers are getting very good at making technology make life easier. I think with the general public, I wish it was easier. I wish it was easier for people to just understand that, how to set a hearing, how to ask a court for something, how to, without necessarily hiring a lawyer. I think that it's something that would help people go to court without having to go through this very expensive maze of hiring attorneys and doing discovery and having all this stuff. So I feel like technology will play a huge, huge role in the next, few decades here of hopefully making life easier and saving time, because there's a lot of stuff that's pretty inefficient. We have it now.
I think that's an awesome takeaway. Alex, as we close things out, do you have anything that you would wish to share with your fellow colleagues?
Yeah, I think that it takes, I guess what I would share is that it's going to take time, and that you're going to want to realize that it's not all going to happen for you at once, and that you are better off starting and just getting into it. If you're going to have your own practice and you feel like you're in a situation in life where you're able to, I think you should. I think what you need to do is make sure you know people that can help you along the way, or that can help you with clients, or that can help you really sort of figure out what it is that you're doing. I think you really should get as much as you can. Find people who are mentors, who are willing to help you out. I mean, these guys, the first couple times I went out with these guys that I now work with, we went out and to happy hour, and they couldn't stop talking about all the different cases they had, and different this and that, and maybe like, an interesting story they had from a case or whatever. A lot of people are very, very happy, especially people that have built up a law practice, are more than happy to share with you everything that worked for them, or mistakes they made, or things that went well, things that didn't. So I think if you can talk to people like that and just ask them questions and just soak it in, and I mean, we're all in this profession, and everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to make a nice living for themselves, have a nice practice that's, maybe fulfilling for you and what you do. And if the more people you can talk to that have actually done it, the better, because you're going to realize, and I'm sure a lot of people go through this in every industry, but you're going to realize, wait a minute, this person did it, and I seem like I'm more capable than they are. So if they did it, then I can probably do it. And I think that's the attitude you have to have, is that there are people less capable than you who have done it. And so if you can learn how to do it, and you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have learning experiences, you're going to feel discouraged, but I think you just got to keep doing it and be grounded in good advice, in good practices, in good mentors, people that can help you, and people that have been there before. Because if somebody's been there before and they're willing to help you, listen to all of it. You may not agree with 100% of it, but there's a good chance that there's something in there for you.
Thank you, Alex, for giving us your insights and also being part of the Inspired Attorney.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What did you think? Drop your comments, key insights, takeaways. Drop those all into the comments below. I'd love to hear your takeaways. Also, you know the drill. If you're seeking further strategic guidance, use me as a resource. I'm here to help you strategically pivot. So use the link that is included in the information below to book one of 2 complimentary offers I have available to you. I trust that this conversation was valuable for you, so I look forward to adding more value in the next episode.